Also to invite me to join these important events, and thank you to Japan Foundation. I would like to talk about the roles of the civil society in bridging divides and disparity in Asia. My experience will be on health sectors. We have a small office. I will not talk too much with my organization, but it's a non-profit organization. If anyone interested to work or collaboration on consumer organization, please let me know. And we have 3 sections, but Center for Consumer Interest is about 10,000 complaints every year, and the monthly magazine called Smart Buyer Magazine. And we do have some policy campaign and capacity building for consumer organization. Right now we have helping the consumer organization to capacity building for them to work at the provincial level. The magazine and also our campaigns also antibiotic from our food. You might, I think here also you might have the problems. Food safety problems is the majority. We just recently, very sad story that Ministries of Industrial doesn't agree to ban 3 hazardous chemicals, paraquat, chlorpyrifos, and glyphosate. I have learned that here in Japan, you also still using that chemical, but Laos, Vietnam, and some southern country, 51 countries already banned. We did a test on fast food, 18 brands selling in the Thai. And we found that chicken burger from Subway contaminated with antibiotics. This monthly magazine, and this also the same thing that we did we call comparative tests. We do test a product in every national and international brand and disseminate information to the consumer, and we found out that it's very powerful to the consumer to exercise their right, especially right to choose the product, and some we campaign to have more policy levels on food safety issues. I think all of you might know already about the basic consumer rights, and we would like to talk about the economic divide in Thailand. Last year, Credit Suisse Global Wealth Data Bank to their ranking among 40 countries that Thailand has overtaken Russia and India as the most unequal country in the world. But the Thai government dismissed the finding, claiming that the gap between the rich and the poor had narrowed. In 2016, Thailand ranked 3rd in the Credit Suisse report, but 1%, 500,000 people of the population, or 58 of the country's wealth. This year, the figure is 66.9. The data on 2018, higher than in Russia, where the shares of wealth held by the top 1% dropped from 78 to 57.1%. Meanwhile, half of the poorest Thai, 25 million people, or 1.7 of the country wealth, with 70% about 35 million control 5% of the wealth. Over India has dropped to 4th place, which is wealthiest share went down from 58.4% to 51.5%. In no other nation does the top 1% control more than half of the country's wealth. This is very serious problem. And since all of you might know that we're gonna have general election in the next month, it's very exciting for the whole country. But around 5.8 million people, 8.6% of the population are in poverty. And the 7 majority party, the parties who are very actively, they are all have the policy to decrease the poverty and also to some certain project to dividing the inequities. And according to 2017 Poverty and Disparity Report by Office of the National Economic and Social Development Councils, however, if the almost poor group, those with expenditure just little above the poverty line, is included, there will be about 11.6 million people in poverty. This is 1/6 of the population. And 11.6 million, if you looking into the data that the government registered, is about 14.5 million low-income earners at the end of 2018. Right now, the government have a special card for the poverty line, people who live under the poverty lines. Who are the poorest? The poorest are the old people, and among them 60% live in the countryside and 10% of them live alone. You can see about 1 million live alone and 10 million over the age of 60. According to National Statistics Office in 2012, 2 groups of people with poverty are those under 15 years old and those older than 60 years old. They need to rely on their family members who are people of working age. Some of them working in Bangkok or in the big cities over the countries. And cause of the poverty, I think it was very clear that the structures and unbalanced structure, income disparity, make it harder for the poor people to have access to opportunities such as education for better career. They might end up having unstable jobs with unreliable incomes. You might see motorcycles. A lot of the Thai people own a motorcycle to have their job to carrying people. There is no clear policies on poverty reduction, but more disparity are encouraged by policies that obstruct easy access to community resources such as land. We still very far with BOI, industrial developmental project that focus on big city, force rural people to adjust or move into the city. This present government announced EEC, Eastern Economic Corridor, that they migrate the people who are living in that eastern part of Thailand, and the one who investment can get benefits on tax. From social movement, we have a lot of proposals for social structures that we would like to see, because we already have the experience that I might talk to you a little bit later on healthcare reform, and right now we have universal coverage of healthcare. Right now, Thailand has the system of we call elderly allowance, but very small amount. I think it's about 600 baht for a month. It's about 1,800 800 yen only a month. And right now we propose this should be like maximum than the poverty lines, and we request the government to have about like 3,000 baht a month. That is about 10,000 yen. That Japanese will have more than a day. But at least 3,000 baht we cannot success now. It's a campaign for the present government who run election that all the parties, some agree that we're gonna cut the budget from the military budget to put in place of the pension, people pensions, and I think right now is a very good opportunity for the society to looking into the proposals of all the parties who run for general elections, and I think this can help to improve the social welfare. So we would love to see to improve the policy change, because right now, as I already mentioned earlier, that our government have about 11.6 million people who can cover by welfare card. But when you doesn't did the whole universal, the poorest cannot access to the welfare card. The welfare card can for the like the leader in the community, so the governors in some small village, not the poor can access to the welfare card, or the line between the one who got the welfare is very small. Like if you have 100,000 baht saving, you cannot get a welfare card. But if you went to the private hospital, in the days after you will have a welfare card. But the system doesn't automatically improve you to be a welfare card. But that's why we promote that it should not have a welfare card. It should have the universal system instead of the some marginalized group or some certain groups only. And we would like to see that everyone equally, such as universal coverage of healthcare that we already have. But even universal coverage of healthcare we already have, but they still have 3 schemes. Civil servants scheme have 14,000 baht per capitation. Golden card have only 4,000 baht a year, and social security scheme is a little bit higher, a little bit from the golden card. It's still different in the universal coverage and child allowance, educational allowance, and housing welfare, and universal pension scheme. That is, we try to promote with all parties, or raise a question among the parties to agree or not agree with this change. I will not look into details, and I think the dilemmas of the country, or even in the Asian country, we always get the problem that where you gonna get the money. You never raise the question that why we don't priority the money, why we don't priority the budget, why we spend a lot of money on military budget, or we still buy some weapon since we would like to see peace, something like that. And the proposals, some are they, but we have some certain progress, especially on the communities. We already have the progress on the housing, but it's still only 8,000 people can got that have to pay the tax. This very difficult. So even the dividends fund something. We have limited times. I might talk a little bit on the universal health coverage of healthcare that we initiate. I think for this case, at least three powers enhanced together. I have to say that political view is also one of the power, and people's participation also very important one, and very clear information start from the expert also helping to do our success on this. And if you look at universal healthcare coverage, it's very clear that it's decrease of mortality rate, and a part of decrease of mortality rate has a data that we reduce poverty significantly. 12 years of implementation has prevented more than 100,000 families from falling into poverty due to medical costs. That's why I would like every country to discuss about how we're gonna share the wealth, and from sharing the wealth and smaller governments, and also my last is we have to have like a new perspective, especially on social issues, how we gonna have quality of life everywhere. The roles of us, our constitution since 1992 have a right, who have a right to vote can have signature. At that time we have 50,000, but right now our constitution is 10,000. You can have a right to propose for the law, and this is one example. We proposed the law for universal healthcare coverage, and this the campaign. We did a signature together with a copies of identity card and housing identity. Two of that, very difficult because no one carry identity housings. But at that time the law mentioned that if you like to have the right to propose for the law, you have to have a copy of your identities and also with the identities of housings. And we all in the drafting law, and the laws have a lot of good point in the law, especially participation from the people in every level, and that's why we can maintain or sustain the universal coverage until now. This is some certain growth. Last year, the government would like to amend the law, but they cannot success because our group is protest, and right now the law is quiet. Amendments of the law is quiet, and I think we still have to work continuing on this universal health coverage, because I think the system here in Japan and in Thailand is different. When you went to see the private hospital, the majority of here of the hospital are private hospital, right? But in Thailand, majority is government hospital. But here you pay to the government and the private hospital, you pay equal. But in Thailand, if you went to the private hospital, you will be about some medicine we found out that about 70 times to 400 times in the private hospitals, and that's why we have to further on high cost of medical fee in private hospital because of if the private hospitals very high cost of the healthcare, it will be difficult to keep a good doctors in the government hospital because of the brand name will be from the government hospital to the private hospital. Then the universal coverage scheme will be a bit higher also. This is and also not only a campaigns against policies with negative impact on healthcare services like free trade agreements, FTA between Thailand and EU or ASEAN FTA, or my last is the CPTPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, that is right now our government would like to be involved. Yeah, since I just end up with this slide, most of the people would like to put the chair for the kid, but if we broke the wall, everyone can see equally and how we gonna bridge the divide among the Asia. I think we have to smaller our government and also retaining public services, and also we have to set some certain norm that narrowing of the difference in living standard and also new social perspective, quality of life to everyone. Thank you very much.